Welcome to this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast on this 13th of April 2021. This is episode 772 of the Ril Dil podcast with Cyril, Gerald-Quinn. Hope everybody out there has had a great day. I am joined by a special, very, very special guest. You've seen her before a couple of other times on the podcast. I think this is like the fourth one we've done, third or fourth. I want to say fourth. We have a lost episode that maybe you guys will see one day.
Right.
I've been put out. I'm going to tease it.
Right.
But Monique Malbet joins the program, of course, of Young Black and I Invest. And you see she has the new pickup, sold a house, I'm assuming. That is a smile of someone who just sold something. I don't care if it's a house, condo, whatever. Something was sold.
Yeah. Always something being sold, okay?
I can only imagine that is a great feeling. So she's here to join us. Before we get into the podcast, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was actually pretty good. So yes, still selling stuff, getting homes under contract. The market is extremely busy nationwide because I'm talking to people everywhere and they're experiencing difficulties with securing homes because the inventory is very, very low. Outside of that, I have another vacation coming up. So I'm looking forward to relaxing. Because I think I told you guys last time. Well, thank you, Cyril, for allowing me to come back again. So this is exciting. And yes, we are missing an episode due to my laptop, but it will be found because I had my old laptop broke. Okay. And I have some stuff kind of backed and saved. I don't know if our episode is saved. So that's the only reason why. But I have a new laptop, a new MacBook. So we don't have those issues moving forward. Thank you. Because you guys don't know that was shade towards me.
That actually was not shade.
It wasn't shade. It
wasn't shade. I don't throw subliminal shade.
Okay.
I'm throwing shade. It's not ambiguous at all.
Right. It's fun. It's fun.
People that know me will tell you that.
It's
really know me.
It's fun though. It's always fun. But yeah, so no, things are great though. So no, thanks for having me back. And I'm excited about the topics and everything that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, a couple things before we get into the podcast here. I'm gonna tell you right now, it was very, very hard pressed to find anything that is positive to talk about. It is the world right now is just, the world has lost its mind, so to speak. The world is, we are all over the place as a society. I probably could have saved this for the end of the podcast, but I'll say this right now. Please take care of your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as Black men and women, in particular. But please take care of your mental health because it is, again, there's a lot going on. A couple of things I want to get out the way. You heard about the Johnson & Johnson being recalled as far as it's been recalled for temporarily because of there are some blood clots in some patients that took the Johnson & Johnson vaccine shot, had some blood clots. It suffered from some blood clots, but it's not been widespread. Of course, they're downplaying it. I sent a text to a couple of people that I really care about and saying that I know you're getting. I couldn't talk you out of getting the vaccine, but don't mess with that Johnson & Johnson. I don't care.
Yes, and actually, I'm happy you mentioned that because my coach actually got his, and I texted him first thing this morning, like, hey, not sure if you saw this article. So I sent him the article. So yes, just definitely be careful, not against the vaccine, but just be careful, right.
And everybody knows who's listened to my podcast and listened to me for over the last year or so. Well, maybe not even the last year, maybe the last 6 months. when I really started going in about the vaccine, or when I mentioned it. Listen, me personally, I'm just gonna wait. I'm just if I do take it all, I'm just going to wait, because it's like a cell phone when it first comes out. You're gonna have, when the iPhone first came out, there were a lot of kinks, and therefore,
right.
according to the iPhone users and people who purchased one, there's still some kinks. And they worked many of them out, but I don't think that. To me, I've done research. Spoken to some doctors, and I've heard both sides of the aisle. I've heard doctors say, "Hey, it's cool. You can take it. You'll be fine." And I also heard some doctors say, "You know what? Well, you can actually wait a few months, if not until maybe even 2020.
Yeah,
and be in bad shape."
And I agree with you, because there has been another incident that happened where my best friend, her dad took the vaccine, and he had a bit of a reaction and ended up in the hospital. And this is very recent. It just happened. He just got out actually today. He was there for, I think, for like a week and a half. So you definitely have to be careful. As of right now, I do feel like it's a bit of a science experiment on us citizens, unfortunately. But I do have family. My mom has gotten a vaccine. My sister got the vaccine. They're all okay. But I've been telling everybody, just still be careful. And I agree with you, waiting. I know their conditions are a little bit different, so that's why they didn't. But my mom and even my sister, they even laugh and say, we're a science experiment right now, Monique. They just felt like they needed to get it. They did what was best for them. But I'm in agreement with you on waiting if possible.
Yeah, and listen, I totally get why some people take it. There are people with underlying conditions who couldn't wait to take it. They would have been first in line.
Right.
If you are at advanced age per se, you're in your 60s, 70s, and what have you. Of course, you're going to be. You're going to be more than likely to take it, and also and I mentioned this earlier, the mental health aspect of it. People feel like they, been inside for a year, been, quarantining somewhat for a year, maybe with exceptions of Florida and Texas, who is eluded, and Arizona. But I think people are, mentally done as far as this pandemic, and saying, look, I want to get out. I want to live my life back to where it was. So this vaccine is a means to get me back in that direction. And from a mental standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, I can understand it. I've been virtual for a year as well in my particular job. So, just do yourself a favor and make sure you just protect yourself. Just acquire as much information as possible and make the best possible decision. And I just don't like it when you just told me about that reaction you had. Those stories are not being reported. Those stories are not really being reported of those type of reactions. This is a story. Johnson & Johnson, they had to report this because it was just too big. Like this could not be hid. They cannot hide this. No.
Yeah, and
I've heard some stories about some some vicious side effects, and I'm not just talking about sore arm or fatigue. Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that the thing is that what somebody else I think someone posted it, or they were talking to me about this. They was like, are they forcing people as soon as they get the vaccine to take a picture of them getting it and being excited? I don't know if that was like a meme or something, or somebody was talking about it, because I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird that they're pushing it like that. Like, hey, as soon as you get the vaccine, post it on Instagram and tell everybody to get it, or Facebook. I don't know what it is. I don't know if that's like, I don't know what that is, but it's a little weird and strange. I feel like, it's kind of adding additional pressures that don't need to be there. I feel like, at the end of the day, people need to do their research. And if you feel comfortable, go and get it. Or if you have, like you said, underlying conditions, but also know that there are risks And it should be reported the same way they're reporting, hey, I got the shot, or I feel amazing. It should also, the other side has to be reported, and not just when it's a big deal like Johnson and Johnson. Like, it should be reported, either way.
Yeah, I want to hear everything. I want to hear any reaction that you had. Yeah, I want to hear it. I want to hear about it. It's just more, it's more information for me to take into account. The second thing I want to touch on quickly. This is the fifth anniversary of Kobe Bryant's last game as a last NBA game. Of course, April 13th, 2016, he played a home game at Staples, and he, of course, ended it with a bang, scored 60 points in that game, which is the most that any NBA player has ever scored in their final game, I'm sure, by far. Just a wild game. He took like 50 shots. They won the game. Again, his very last game of his career, and which takes on added meaning considering what transpired with the helicopter crash last January. So again, something that I just was brought up. I saw it earlier. I knew it was sometime in April around this time. I didn't know. I forgot the specific date, but so just want to bring that up. Amazingly, it's been 5 years since Kobe Bryant has been, the late Kobe Bryant has been retired from the NBA. Of course, he retired in 2016. Of course, successfully transitioned into screenwriting, won an Academy Award, and was well on his way to becoming a billionaire as far as what he was going to do in the movie industry and what have you with his production company and things of that nature. So just wanted to touch on that, those two things off the top. Now, of course, we get into the heart of the matter. You've had two situations involving police. One that, of course, was recent that just took place, and one, of course, that took place last December. First and foremost, the loss of life. You have a Dante Wright shooting. Dante Wright was 20 years old. He was shot and killed by police officer, well, former police officer now, as she has resigned. Kim Potter. Kim Potter was at a traffic stop, at a stop where he was pulled. He was pulled over by two other cops. There were three cops there total. He had a. They allegedly pulled him over. When they pulled him over, they noticed air fresheners hanging in his back mirror, which is, wherever this is against the law. He also had a outstanding misdemeanor warrant. Minor stuff like, nothing major whatsoever. So he's getting arrested. You've seen the video. I've seen the video. He's getting arrested. They're putting the cuffs on, and he breaks away. There are two male officers. One, and of course, Kim Potter. Potter was there as a training officer. She was training a younger officer, and they were putting the cuffs on him. And he resisted. He breaks away. She comes out of nowhere, says taser, taser, taser. So she says taser 3 times, and then she says it again as she shoots inside his vehicle and fatally wounds him in the chest. And when she shot, she immediately said, after she shot, she said, of course, if you've seen the video, she said, oh shit, I shot him. And of course, Dante Wright died soon after that, passed away soon after that. So to give you an update on what has transpired, Kim Potter and Police Chief Tim Gannon have both resigned. That happened today. There are reports that she could be charged as early as tomorrow. We'll see. I mean, probably we'll see if that happens. If you wonder who Tim Gannon is, Tim Gannon was a police chief that came out and spoke immediately and basically said that he believed that it was an accident. So that was who he was. He has 19 years with that particular precinct. She is a 26-year veteran officer who started at a very young age. She started, I think she was 22 back in 1995. So she's 48 years old. She's very young, was very young when she became a police officer. This, since 2001, there have only been 16 incidents of this liking in the country, not so much not just in Milwaukee, not just in Wisconsin, not in Wisconsin, but just in the United States. There have only been 16 incidents like this. And of course, this happened 10 miles away from where the the Derek Chauvin trial is taking place. Not the George Floyd trial, it's the Derek Chauvin trial that is taking place. So the city is, Milwaukee and that surrounding area is, as you might expect it, is just completely in an uproar. This took place in Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Center, in Brooklyn Center. And I shouldn't say, it wasn't in Milwaukee. I'm saying Milwaukee, this is in Minnesota, Minnesota. This took place in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. So, I think, you look at it, how scary this is for African Americans, for Black Americans, to say the least. First of all, no one in their right mind could believe that she doesn't know, a veteran police officer of 26 years doesn't know the difference between a gun and a taser. And if you don't know the difference between a gun and a taser, you don't need to be on the police force, period.
Right.
That just goes without saying. The scary part, and obviously this is, and I've heard, we bring the race factor into the picture, and it has to be brought into the picture. This is continuously happening to Black men and Black women. Let me not leave out Breonna Taylor. There was a lady, and this story, I just ran upon this story a couple of days ago, last week. I believe this happened in Texas like 2 years ago. And it just came out where a pregnant woman was shot and killed by a police officer when she was in distress. He came up to her. She gets nervous, like why are you approaching me? Clearly, it was a case of he mistaken her for somebody else, and she, was very nervous and she was saying, I'm pregnant, and he, he shot her. He resisted. He claims that she resisted. I saw it was on tape. He claims in his defense that she resisted arrest from him, and he tosses her down and shoots her in cold blood. But that, so I can't definitely not leave out women who are being just as oppressed in terms of these policemen against police officers as the Black men are. So I don't want to definitely leave the black women out of this equation, because they're taking the heat from police officers as well. I think the scary part is it's a combination to me of not only just racism, which is at the heart of the matter, but sheer just is fear, is like police cops being fearful of Black men and Black women, and also incompetence. Like if you saw Daunte Wright is not like Shaq. This guy couldn't have been, he looked to me, couldn't have been no more than 150 pounds, if that. I mean, so you're telling me that two grown men can't cuff him? Two grown men, you need three cops handling one dude who was just trying to run away. And by the way, you have his information. So if he does get away, it's not like he's not going to run to Canada here. Like he's like, so it was a level of incompetence that is just beyond scary. And it goes back to me of the hiring process. What does it take to become a cop? Intelligence is, so it's just beyond just racism. Like the racism is the main piece. We know we understand that white supremacy has infiltrated police precincts all over this country. That goes without saying.
Mhm.
But just the level of just sheer incompetence is scary to say the least. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to, honestly, this conversation is sadly going to happen over and over and over again. It's not going to stop. This is not going to be, I mean, we've had police killings and shootings of Black people. I mean, this has started since the country was founded. And let's not talk about, convict leasing and all this stuff that actually, a lot of the prison system and everything really started to get big, and they really started pushing it shortly after slavery. Once slavery ended, they started to arrest Black people for petty crimes. And a lot of these petty crimes was because there was lack of resources. Because what happened? You released, you release Black people from slavery, and we didn't get paid for it. On top of that, our descent, we're descendants of it, but our ancestors, they didn't get paid for the work that they did. And then you just told them, hey, go figure it out in a process. But you made sure, the system made sure they paid slave owners. They made sure they paid them for their loss of their property, because that's what we were considered. And then from there, next thing you know, a huge push and a huge push and policing started to increase, and a huge push and the prison system started to increase. And this is pure facts. You can actually look this up and Google it. It started shortly after slavery. Not saying that it didn't exist. The push started to become bigger shortly after, because they started arresting Black people for petty crimes, and it's called convict leasing. So you guys can go ahead and Google that and look it up too. And essentially the crimes that they would arrest Black people for, let's say if somebody was stealing, because, like I said, they didn't get paid. So once they got paid and you say, hey, go free, you know what I mean? When Black people did start getting paid, it wasn't enough to survive. And a lot of Black people just had to figure it out. So during that time and during that era, they would literally arrest people when they seen them. Hey, they stole a tomato, they stole some food because they're trying to feed their family because they're starving, you know what I mean? But then they were locked them up, or their punishments or crimes was much bigger than an incident, right? So that's kind of where the big push into prisons and policing, aka the KKK and all that stuff like that. You start talking about Jim Crow and everything like that. All this started to form and become bigger and become a bigger push, after slavery. So when you think about things like this and how the criminal justice system and everything really starts to form, once you think about this and then you see what's going on today, this is really the consequences and the results of this happening for, pretty much for a long time, decades and decades and centuries. Now today we are asking for them to stop doing what they was doing, and the system allowed them to do. It's going to be damn near impossible. So that's the reason why people are saying, basically saying, what's that saying? Sorry, Rilo, I messed up my train of thought. I have a lot to say. That's what people are saying, to defund the police. That's what people are saying, defund the police. And essentially, let's just wipe this whole thing. Let's just start the whole system over, because we are dealing with centuries, decades and centuries of a system that isn't for us. Now you have situations like this. And if you can go to the next slide, when you have all these unarmed Black people, men and women, who constantly get gunned down and killed over situations, over sometimes it's not even for a reason. It's a made up reason. Oh, your tail light was out. Oh, what did they say for Dante? He had tags in his, what did he have, something hanging from his rearview mirror?
He had expired. So even before the incense, not what you hang in your car for, not deodorant.
Yeah, like you hang in your mirror, whatever it's called.
Right. Those trees that give your car, have the car smelling good. But even before that, he had an expired registration tags, yeah,
Yeah,
registration. Okay, which is minor. I mean,
right, which is either, and that's my point. Every single time, it's always a minor, it's a situation, it's cigarettes. Next time is this and it's that. And because, you're resisting arrest, first and foremost, cops are trained for people that resist arrest. That's bullshit, honestly. Excuse my language. And on top of that, white people resist arrest all the time. There's literally there's hundreds upon hundreds of videos, probably thousands of videos on there of white people literally cussing the cops out, jumping out the car, throwing stuff at the cops. Sometimes some of them even have guns. You never see them get murdered. They always are peacefully arrested. They're always, talked down. So this BS that they keep coming up with, like, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Oh, I thought he had a gun. Oh, I was scared, this, that, and that. No, that's BS. You guys, the system has allowed it, and this is why it's going to continue. And look at, this is a picture right here of all the unarmed Black people. This is not even all of them. This is just some of them. And then here's an image of, if you guys follow Sean King, I love him on Instagram, and he's also on Twitter, but I'm an Instagrammer. If you look up his Twitter handle, Instagram handle and Twitter, he's always talking about, Black Lives Matter and how, the system is pretty much rigged against us. But long story short, he put up this wonderful image of heavily armed white people, white men specifically. They've always managed to arrest them. They never are shot, and they're heavily armed. And on top of that, he has pictures of unarmed Black people who magically always get shot by accident because the cop is scared or they thought they had something in hand. It's BS. It's lies. You guys are doing this on purpose. And I'm tired of making up excuses. At the end of the day, we know what you're doing. We're tired and we're done. And Sean King actually put up a nice little quote that I actually want to read real quickly. This is just showing my frustration because at this point, it's laughable. I'm not going to say it's not laughable because we're the ones that's getting targeted, but it's at the point where I'm just like, I'm over it. Like, I'm done with all excuses. Honestly, when another Black person gets shot and killed, I don't want to hear the excuse. Just lock them up at this point and throw away the key because it doesn't make sense. But he wrote this. Sean King wrote this: "Dear America, you've pushed Black people too far. You've done too much wrong. Keep doing too much wrong and keep doing too little to fix the problems and right the wrongs. All while telling us to stay calm and peaceful when you had no intentions on doing right by us. That's not going to work anymore." And that's how I feel. It's just like, there's no more excuses. I don't even want to hear, we have to go through the proper process. It just doesn't make any sense anymore. And also, what are we dealing with right now? We're in the middle of watching George Floyd's basically murderer. Now they're going to do court and trial for him. But there's a whole videotape showing that he killed that man on live TV. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. So you had also the second situation that I mentioned earlier in regards to Caron Nazario. Caron Nazario is a second lieutenant in Virginia's National Guard. He was pulled over last December by 2 Virginia police officers. He went to a well-lit gas station. They pointed guns at him and basically just told him to step out the car. He was like, and if you watch the video's about 4.5 minutes, about almost 5 minutes long. He says, why do I need to step out the car? I don't know. Why are you pulling me over? And the cops basically pulled him over for nothing. He's got just pulled over for nothing. He refused to get out the car. You have 2 cops pointing guns at him. You have one of the cops who was clearly the veteran of the 2 cops. Yeah, you could tell which one. The one cop in the back was scared to death, and he's taking his cues from seemingly the older veteran cop. So the one cop in the back is basically like, just do what he says. Just do what he says. He's the rookie. He sounds like a rookie. And you had the one cop, the aggressor, who is in front and center. He's basically saying, you are just, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're resisting arrest, and you're like, what did I do? Why are you pulling me over? Why am I going to get out the car when you're pulling me, when you have guns pointed at me and you pull me over for no reason. So, make a long story short, Karan Nazario, then he had told him that, hey, I am a serving member of the military right now. I'm an active member of the military. And the guy, the cop, Gutierrez, I think his name was Gutierrez, his last name, says, I was a veteran too, and I learned how to obey. And he says, and the guy, and Karan Nazario says, listen, basically says, I'm paraphrasing, I'm scared to get out the car right now. Yeah, I'm scared to get out the car. And the cop's response was, well, you should be. And, get out the car. And he says, you're going, and I put this in quotes, you're fixing to ride the lightning, son, which is slang for, we're going to take you to the electric chair. Mm-hmm. So, or it could be considered police slang for, we're about to tase you. Either one, it can fall into both categories. But the original one is you're going to the electric chair. He pepper sprays Nazario. And he pepper sprays Nazario. Nazario eventually takes his seatbelt off, and they pin him to the ground. Now, a couple months later, Nazario is and rightfully so, has a pending federal lawsuit. The cop that sprayed him, that lead cop, he's been fired. You heard the governor Virginia speak out on this. I bring this up because it all intertwines. Because I hear this, and we heard this, when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, you're disrespecting the military, you're not patriotic. This is America. You're not. All this other bullshit. This country could care less about its veterans, especially its Black veterans. Let's keep it real about that. Especially veterans in general. I see it all. Unfortunately, see it all the time. You have a number, countless, maybe thousands of hundreds of thousands of homeless veterans that we don't give a shit about.
Right.
This guy clearly identified himself as a veteran, and you, as a veteran yourself, being a police officer, still choose to treat him like shit. Mm-hmm. And by the way, no charges were filed against Karan Nazario because there was nothing to charge. He did nothing.
The usual.
So there was nothing that, like, you're wondering, what? Oh, they must have put him up for some reason. No.
And does that even matter? I just feel like I was having an argument with somebody else, like, oh, well, if they did this or did that, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the police aren't the judges. They're not supposed to make the final decision. It's crazy to me how much power we try to give them. And we primarily, not we, but we know this lovely society of ours gives more power when it's a Black person that they think that's in the wrong. But if they're in the wrong or not, it's not their job, the police's job to prosecute. Like, I don't understand how it's changed to this. And it's very sad because I was reading about this, and it literally said people actually told him that your service is not going to save you in this country. Yeah. It's so sad. And it takes us back, which is so sad, to Malcolm X and how he basically kept telling us African Americans to denounce, the Vietnam War. And basically he was like one of the first figures that just kept saying, like, we need to stop fighting a war in other countries when we have a war at home. He always talked about that. He always pushed that narrative, and then
Muhammad Ali pushed the same one.
Exactly.
Muhammad Ali didn't chose not, lost, sacrificed his championship
for that, because it's the truth. You have a whole war here at home, and on top of that, MLK at first, Martin Luther King Jr. First, he was saying, he didn't agree with it, but then he also ended up changing his mind and said it too. Like, actually, never mind. He started to also he organized the rally against and protested the war too, eventually as well. I know in the beginning he was for it, but then he started to realize, like, especially when Dr. Martin Luther King, when he woke up, when he became a lot more woke and was just like, we have to we have to change the direction of this fight. And that's shortly. And the next thing you know, they killed him because he became a little bit more woke and started talking about economic equality for all. And I mean, primarily was for Black people. But once he started talking about, getting that check from the government that they owe us, that's the next thing you know, they had to roll up on him and be like, no. You can keep talking about surface level issues like integration, because that's very surface level. But once he started talking about, basically reparations and getting that check, they silenced him. And that's why he was killed. And a lot of people don't realize that and don't know that, because he changed the movement. He went on national TV and talked about, no, we're going to start talking about reparations. He didn't say that exact word, but he basically talked about, the money and the check that was owed to Black people for centuries, for centuries of oppression and discrimination. And So I
want to tie in. I want to bring back something you mentioned earlier. Because I'm gonna pose a question to you in terms of what
Poor People's Campaign. That's what it's called. Sorry, Poor People's Campaign. Go ahead, Cyril.
Yeah, no, William Barber, he does a wonderful job runs that. Poor people. Well, that actually started with back in the '60s with Operation Breadbasket. I go by and read that book.
Yes.
Operation Breadbasket talks about the civil rights movement from '65 to '71. That was the origin of the Poor People's Campaign, which is being run by one Reverend William Barber.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about what I want to pose a question. I'm going to pose a question to you. What can we do as citizens? Because that's the first thing that came to mind. One of the things that came to my mind is, we've seen this movie 100 times over and over. It's like the same movie, different day, same shit, different day.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned earlier about this system that basically has been entrenched for 400 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of slave patrol, that's what the origin of police is slave patrol. They were police were designed to, in essence, arrest and harass Black people. That is real. That is something that is in the DNA of this country, of this culture. So there's shouldn't be no surprise or shock to see what's going on now. It's just been going on forever.
Right.
Now that we have video cameras and social media and things of that technology that's exposing it that much more.
Right.
But you said something in terms of, we mentioned defund the police and the fact that what this system does is, you lock up as many Black people as possible, and put them in prison. Prisons generate revenue. We know if a prison is built, that's more money. That's more money that's going to be generated. So this system is defunding the police. If we were to defund the police, take the money out of these overpriced police budgets and actually put it into the community, maybe without question, communities within the urban areas across the country, Black areas, would be in much better shape for programs for jobs, better education. We understand that this system does not want that whatsoever. Okay. I understand, and again, I understand right now in regards to the political parties, Republicans have lost their damn mind. But let's be honest, and they have. Republicans have completely leaned into the Donald Trump races, just not even try to hide it. They've completely leaned into that way of doing things. Doing things. It garnered him 74 million votes and elected the least qualified president we've ever seen. So why not lean into that if you are of that thought process where you don't care about Black lives or people or African Americans advancing in society. So it makes sense to lean into that if you are of that mindset. So, but I can't trust, we don't trust Democrats either, because Joe Biden Joe Biden is not holding the police force. He's not holding police officers, and he's scared of the police unions just like the rest of the politicians are.
Yes.
Politicians serve the police unions, period. The police unions have all the power. That's why you only see one state in the whole country that has gone away from qualified immunity. Qualified immunity, of course, basically gives police immunity to do whatever the fuck they want.
Basically, yep.
So,
I mean,
so to me, I pose the question: what can you do? What can we do as citizens to somewhat put a dent into this?
So unfortunately, until we have power, there's probably not too much we really can do. Honestly, and it sucks to say that, right? Because I've seen how effective a lot of the protesting has been. I've seen how effective, the Black Lives Matter campaign, everything. I'm fully for it. And I think we should keep going, but we do have to establish some power, and of course, a little bit more, not a little bit more, but money. And I know that's not the exact answer, right? Because that's going to be like, okay, Monique, that's not clear. It's not a clear plan at all. So unfortunately, we do have to get in more of a place of power, and it has to be outside of just, politics, because at the end of the day, even when you get a certain president in office, they'll keep the peace, like Biden. A lot of Democrats, they'll keep the peace, right? Because they don't want racism to boil you out of control like it was under Trump's administration, because that entices basically a war, because that's essentially what it would have turned into, right? So unfortunately, politics, I don't think it's going to be 100% the key, but it's going to be one of those main things that we need to get more people in power in politics. And it can't just be the president. I think we all focus on the president too much. We have to start at the local level. You start at local levels and start changing different laws and rules in different states, right? And major cities, get the right people in power. We probably have to fund those people. We need to start being more like, hey, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're not going to be reelected again. So probably needs to be more at that local level than us always looking at the president, because the president, it's just too far reach. And even when they want to do stuff, they can't, because they still don't have all the power. They still have to get approvals from everybody else, right? So it's going to be, part of it's going to be political, but I think the issue is that we stop there, and it can't stop there. We also need to get more power in the police. And we need to get less Uncle Tom police officers, and that's the truth. And we need to get more, police officers that's for the community, and primarily for Black and Brown communities, in terms of just ensuring that we get the same equal treatment. So it's going to have to be a shift in powers in general. I think the positive thing, and the thing that unfortunately, this is the reason why the rise of Trump was so powerful. The population is shifting. We're starting to go from, basically, I think in the next decade, maybe two, and hopefully we get to live that long, with climate change and everything. We still have to talk about the planet. Yes. And, what we're doing to this earth, Mother Nature is fighting back, but hopefully we start making some drastic changes in that department, and we get to continue to see the changing of the world. But population is shifting. It's starting to become more minorities than more basically Black and Brown people, and also Latinos, with people, basically communities of color, is starting to grow. And I think in the next, 10, 20 years or something like that, it's supposed to be more minorities than white people, right? And it's not, and I'm not saying it's the reason why I'm saying it's a good thing, because the goal, hopefully what would happen is that there'll be a shift in power, because at the end of the day, when it's more and more people of color and more minorities or more mixed people, they can hopefully, move up the chain and move up the ladder in terms of power, and actually start changing some rules and laws here and policies that have held us back. That's the hopeful part. And let's hope that these people don't turn into Uncle Toms or they get bought out, because we know that happens too. So at the end of the day, racism exists. And this is why a lot of people don't even understand that definition. They're like, I'm not a racist. It's not about you. It's the system. Individual, it's not about individuals. Too many of us want to be individuals, like, oh, well, I'm this and I'm that. No one cares about who you are individually. Unfortunately, it's a numbers thing. It's a number. Racism is about the collective and who's in power. It's not about you as an individual. So I think a lot of people, they don't understand that definition. And when I'm talking to them, they're like, well, I'm not a racist. I'm not talking about you. You're not even in power to do anything. No offense. Like, it sucks to say that, but it's the truth. Some of these white people, they'll remark and they'll respond, and it's like, we're not talking about you. You're not even a power to make any changes, unfortunately. Obviously, we still need you, but it's one of those things that's like, that's not what racism is. It's kind of like sexism. At the end of the day, men were the only ones that were able to give women the rights to vote. Why? Because men were in power. So think about that as racism. White people, primarily white men, you know what I mean? They're the ones in control, and they're the ones that make up the rule, and they control this entire system. So they're unfortunately, probably one of the only ones, them and white women are the only ones that can really change racism, right? They're the ones in power. So it really comes down to that power structure. There is a breakdown of, I think it's Equity Now, or no, Prosperity Now, sorry. Prosperity Now actually talks about real life actions that can be done to make changes in this structure overall, not just policing. It breaks down all the things that we can do. I like it because it talks about, money and equity, equality. And it's important. I think it's Equality Now, as well as another organization, equality.org or something like that. But Prosperity Now talks about it in depth. And I like it because it was like real practical situations that we could be doing to help, the Black community. And then on top of that, and Latinos too, it wasn't just Black, but minorities in general. And then I liked how it also just talked about how, we have to get, different policies change and laws and different things change too, to really make the difference. So I know I didn't answer your question because there's really no straight answer, right? But we got to keep applying pressure. We can't just do surface level activities. In terms of taking down statues, we have to do more. It can't stop there. And we have to really get the people in power to hold them accountable, especially on a local level. And if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, we have to get them out of office. We cannot allow them to sit there and continue this system, because I think that's really what's been happening. Black people get in power, and the next thing you know, they turn into an Uncle Tom, and they forget what they honestly, the reason why they were voted in office, right? So, but it also comes down to money too. Once we have a certain amount of money, we can put who we want in power, and we can also take them down too. We could take them out, like, hey, we don't really want you in there anymore because you're not holding, you're not doing what you said you would do. I don't know if I answered the question, Rillo. I'm probably never going to be able to answer that question because
it's a layered. I mean, it's a layered question.
Layered.
And it's, I don't think it has a direct answer. I'll say this. I think that we need a third party, a legitimate third party. But the question is, getting candidates to serve us, and I mean us as minorities, blacks, getting that particular candidate is almost, I'm not gonna say impossible, but
it's very, very difficult.
Close to being near impossible, because if you're someone, you're an up-and-coming candidate, and you want to do the right thing, you want to, you believe in the things that we're talking about. You want to fight against racism. You want to fight against these policies. You want to destroy this system. What is going to be your incentive to do so if you're not supported?
Right.
So, because hold on, it's easier to follow status quo than it is to go out there and just completely destroy what's been going on for the past couple hundred years in this country. So to me, I'm going to put the onus on us, the citizens, Black Americans, the oppressed, because we do have power, and it's proven by what transpired in this election. Even we flipped Georgia, that's power. We almost flipped Florida, almost flipped Texas. at its power, almost flipped North Carolina. And that's why, Republicans are running scared right now, because they see what's coming down the pike. But in order to get the type of candidate that we need to change these policies and to get some of the stuff done, you gotta support. You have to create we talk about a war chest of money, fundraising. Donald Trump right now, and these Republicans are already out there funding. Ted Cruz right now, fundraising for 2024. Got the fundraising for 2024. So,
exactly. And we need to choose who we want. Like, I don't think.
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying. Choose. Okay. No, you're saying. I mean, we're speaking. You're saying what
you said. Okay.
You're what I'm about to say. Yes, we need to choose the candidates, the specific candidate that's going to serve our needs. But in order to do that, you have to protect and support that candidate with money, with just and with money, because listen, I'm not gonna put my neck out on the line, even if I believe what is right, and I get no support from you, or you don't, whether it's through voting, whether it's through, again, fundraising, things of that nature. So I'll just go out there, be a regular politician, make a nice living, and keep it moving, which is happening a lot. Even without selling out, you can make a good living of being just a regular politician, playing it safe, and go about your business. Mm-hmm. If you want somebody radical, if you want someone radical in a positive way that's going to benefit Black Americans in particular, you have to put the support behind those particular persons. I don't see the candidate right now. We look at what's in the House, the Senate. We look at the candidates. They're definitely not any Republicans that fit that bill. I mean, who in the Democrats that fit that bill? I mean, maybe AOC. Bernie is 150 years old.
No.
So it's like there's I don't see it right now in terms of even any quality candidates that fit that bill, that are willing to be that radical. Maybe AOC could be that candidate. If we were to back her, if we said, hey, we will fight you, we will fight through the fire for you. Do what you do, be radical, go out there, but we will support you no matter what. And we probably that mentality does not exist right now, because and I hate to say this, but this is true. We, even within our own ranks of African Americans, Black Americans, we're not connected.
Yeah, and that's by design as well. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's probably I can't remember what I was reading, but it was just talking about how we just really need to find and elect a person. Like I don't mean someone that's already running. I'm talking about we find somebody off the street and say, hey, we will fund you to do X, Y, and Z. Not off the street, right? Obviously, you want them to have some type of credentials, but maybe choosing somebody that never really had the agenda of running, for office, and choosing them and putting them in power and just saying, hey, I can't remember where I was reading this at, but it was really powerful, because it just kept saying, like, you find the person, you choose the people. Like, this is what we should do as a community. We find the person, we choose them and say, hey, you're only going to get this. I'm so sorry. You're only going to get this, and you're only going to get our support and our funding if you do X, Y, and Z. So that's just
because here's the thing too, to your point. Like, obviously we had to vet these people out, these candidates out, per se. So if you fundamentally don't believe in some of the stuff that we're talking about, like defunding police and getting rid of qualified immunity, you're not somebody that, you're not a candidate. We're not that we automatically we could just stop the interview here. Yeah, it's their beliefs have to be in line to supporting our needs as Black Americans, period.
Definitely.
So that's the beginning of it. So if you in your heart of hearts don't really believe in fighting for Black Americans and even reparations, things of that nature, then no, you're not for us. You're not what we're looking for. Period.
Exactly.
Let's just get that situated off the whip. It's like, I'm not gonna try. Like, we shouldn't have to, like, there should be a connection. There shouldn't be we have to convince you to love us or convince you to fight for us. Like, no, that should be, it has to be a marriage of that, a marriage of the minds, a meeting of the minds, from that standpoint. So yeah, if I gotta convince you to care about Black lives, then nah, I'm good. You go about your business. One last thing before we move on about this. I hear about the police officers. This is the old classic argument that you hear. This bullshit. Well, it's not all police officers that are doing this. Well, you know what? The ones who are being silent, the ones who are not pulling the trigger, you're just as complicit if you're not calling out the ones who are if you're not calling out the Derek Chauvins of the world or the Kim Potters of the world. You are just as complicit. And there are a number, and I definitely want to call out the number of African American officers who don't say shit. How many African American officers that are active do you hear speaking out? Now I'll hear, you know what happens? I'll hear a guy that's been retired for 25 years out, but how many active African American Black officers were coming out and speaking out against it? I'll wait.
Actually, that's a great point. And the fact that, mass shootings, I know that's one of our topics. Sorry, guys, to rush. The fact that majority of the mass shootings that's always happening is white. And, it's always a white person. Unfortunately, majority of them are. The fact that police officers are still running around here acting like they're scared of Black people is ridiculous. It's like, come on, guys. I'm done with that story.
That is a real thing. If you listen, I'm watching both those tapes, both those videos, which are extremely at least. There is a fear of Black men, and it is Black, and it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. There's a fear. There is a insecurity amongst these officers. I get a sense that a lot of these officers that have become cops were probably losers in high school. Were probably nobody. They probably didn't have a lot of friends growing up, or just got a gun in a badge, and all of a sudden they want to feel in a position of power. Now they can kind of get some of their revenge back on off some of the self-hate that they have for themselves. I really feel like some of the stuff, like your lack of ability to de-escalate. And I don't think it's a lack of ability to de-escalate. I think it's a choice. I've seen videos of white kids, of white people getting de-escalated.
And they usually are out of control. That's the thing
right, exactly.
And with a gun, I'd be like, so
you took my man, just Kyle Rittenhouse. You took him. I think they took him to McDonald's or something. They took him to get something to eat. After he shot 2 protesters. Okay, so we know what this is. We know what time it is from that standpoint. But I just want to call out all the Black officers who don't say shit and just continues and just hide behind this blue line, this blue shield in regards to the police force. You are just as big of a problem as the ones that are actually pulling the trigger.
Amen. That's very true.
So shifting to entertainment, of course, last Friday, hip hop lost one of its legends and icons, DMX. He passed away at the age of 50, had a heart attack. Now, the cause of that heart attack is still in question. The immediate reports were that it was an overdose. I read some reports that the family said that was complete bullshit. That he did not overdose. Then you start hearing some conspiracy theories then you start hearing some reports that he might have taken the vaccine. So I don't, with today's news, I don't know what to believe in terms of that. But I also know the family said that the family came out and said that it was not an overdose. DMX owned 1998. He released 2 number 1 albums in the same year, 1998. He is the only artist whose first 5 albums all went to number 1. His first 3 albums debuted at number 1, which is, again, unheard of. We see the amount of sold 74 million albums sold worldwide. And of course, he's a part of the famous class of '98. That all these names released their debut albums in 1998. I understand for those of you hip hop heads, well, they came out before 1998. Yes, they were. All these artists were out before 1998. These 1998 is when they released their debut solo albums. So, and this is one of the great hip hop classes of all time. And really, 1998 was a seminal year in terms of hip hop. It really changed the landscape of hip hop. If you looked at all the albums and music that was released in that particular year, when you heard about this, were you a DMX fan growing up, or did you? What were your thoughts?
Yes. I mean, honestly, let's be real. Like, honestly, when I seen the amount of people talking about him, I was like, first and foremost, I mean, half of y'all probably, I wanted to say half of y'all probably didn't even know who he was, but I was like, you know what, let me be nice, because maybe some of these little kids, you know, did their research and started to listen to them, you know, later. But I feel like the all-time, you know, the Rough Riders at the end of the day, that anthem, that was it. It's like, stop, drop, shut them down. I mean, come on now. That was classic. There was no way, you know what I mean? Everyone Black knew who DMX was and loved him. Even with, you know, some of the other issues he had when he was, you know, back in the day, younger day. But honestly, at the end of the day, isn't that kind of pretty normal for a celebrity? So, you know, but he's been recovered. He's hasn't done drugs in a long time. So for people to be saying that it's from overdose is kind of, I think it's a little disrespectful.
Yeah, I think that is completely disrespectful and completely just, again, it's you know, it's today's media as far as trying to paint this picture, because truthfully, you don't have to shit on DMX as far as his past, because DMX lived his truth. DMX was completely open and honest in his music and throughout the course of interviews about his struggle with addiction. If you don't know, his first interaction and where it all turned for the worse for him was at the age of 14, when his so-called mentor gave him a blunt marijuana that was laced with crack. So at age 14, so he struggled over for the better part of his life.
Right. That's so true.
But he was a devout Christian. He came out with a gospel album not too long ago. He's somebody, when you read reports, that and you also, I mean, like the people that you have seen talk about DMX said that he was anointed. Like they say, you were around DMX, you could sense and you could feel an anointing. That he was anointed. And you know, the thing about it is, I like how, you know, I get on. I have way more respect for a person who's open and honest about who and what they are, live their truth, not trying to hide behind, you know, celebrity, not trying to prop themselves up like on this, you know, pedestal like they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I have way more respect for that type of person, and I can relate to that type of person rather than this holier than thou person who never committed a sin or who shit doesn't stink. I'm wary of those people.
Yeah,
those perfect people. So I think that you know, DMX connected with a lot of people because he was, you know, he was relatable from the standpoint of, yeah, I can't rap like DMX, but I've gone through struggles, life struggles like he did. You read up on his story, you know, about basically his father not being around and his mother, parents really, you know, him not having the greatest upbringing, and you know, which led to some of his decisions that he made as a teenager and early adult. So yeah, definitely a tremendous loss.
Just to add on to what you were saying, I just love the fact that I think there was people posting about this, how emotional he was, but he also was still, you know, how, you know, that you know, was hardcore at the same time. Because I think a lot of us make it seem like you can't be, you know, I guess tough and you know, hardcore or whatever, or gangsta, whatever the heck people want to say. They act like you can't be that and also have emotions too. And DMX was probably from what I remember was one of the first few rappers that was actually able to do that. Was actually able to speak from his heart, and also when there was things that were bothering him or things that, you know, he may be a bit emotional about, he was able to really display that in his music and talk about it. And even in his regular life, and just in his life as well, just how deep and passionate he was. So I think that's what made him so great. He laid everything on the table and he gave everything his all. And at the end of the day, his time here is he's did what he's supposed to do. It was time for him to move on. And I am a huge supporter of people who live their life and live their truth 150%. And I feel like that man lived his life and his truth 200%. And honestly, 50, I'm surprised it wasn't a little bit younger, because I feel like the people that live the most, that go so hard. And I know I was having this conversation with somebody else, like, would you rather live 40 good years, like you live, or would you rather live till 70, but you barely lived? And it was a tough question. You know, it was one of those things I was like, that's tough. That's hard. Because who doesn't want to live to like 70,
how about I want to live a full life and be 95? I think.
Yeah. No.
I know.
And I agree with you, but somebody was just talking about, like, I can't remember who it was. We were just having a
I know what you're
conversation.
saying.
Like, yeah, like if you had a real choice, like,
yeah.
I'm not going to say 40, you could say 50 and you live to 100, but because there's so many of us that's going through the motions of life. We're not living. So you could live.
Live the full, I would take the full life. I would take the full life.
Yeah. So you can live 70, 80, 90 years, but there's so many people that's living 70, 80, 90 years, but they're not living. They're barely existing.
Yes.
They hate their job. They hate their life. They hate everything. They're in pain 24/7 because they're not happy. So with that being said, it was just one of those things I was thinking about. I was like, that's a tough question. It was just a question. I was just like, I don't know.
It's a legit question. That is a fair. That's an interesting question.
It just makes you think.
Not argument, but just
It makes you think. But at the end of the day, it's like some of these celebrities that die young. It's one of those things. Not just celebrities, but people that live a really good full life and they live. You know, you can't be upset when it's time for them to move on, because you can definitely say they lived. They did what they were supposed to do, and their message and whatever they were supposed to give to us, to this world, that he gave it. And it's time for him to move on to the next chapter, whatever that is, right? Obviously, it's not easy saying that, especially with somebody you love and you personally know. It's always difficult, but we know that's one thing we're guaranteed to do is die. So while you're here, I think that's the lesson is to live, guys. We don't know how long we have. You got to live. And I appreciate DMX gave us everything. He left it all on the table. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, no, he absolutely did. I mean, he lived he got the most out of his 50 years. We mentioned earlier at the top of the podcast about we talking about Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant's another one. He only lived to, he died at 41. He lived a full 41 years.
Right.
So it is, we feel like it's going too soon, but he lived, look at everything he accomplished and did in those 41 years. There are people who could live to be 200 and not accomplish and do what he did and do the kind of legacy that he's left. So to your point, I completely agree with that. DMX is too. He's in terms of that vulnerability mixed with the that kind of like street hardcore persona. It's kind of like he was kind of like Tupac, like in that sense. I think Tupac had that, and that's what made Tupac such a great actor as well. Vulnerability, that vulnerability as well. I think so. I think DMX and Tupac are similar in terms of that.
Yes.
It's it's certainly don't want to see anybody. They want to see anybody pass away at the age of 50, but he lived absolutely, like to your point, he absolutely lived a full life, and his legacy will live on forever. I mean, people will be talking about DMX 20 or 30 years from now. He does, and for his fans, he does have his last album is coming out. I think before the end of this year, before December. So he has one final album that was completed. So I'm sure that probably I for certain I'm sure that will be another number one because
Right.
his streams have gone through the roof. His streams are up like 928%, something like that
Yes.
since Friday. So
Yeah. So rest in power, my brother.
yes,
Rest in power.
definitely, without question, rest in power to one Earl Simmons. Shifting over to the sports world. So I was watching a game on Saturday night. Lakers were playing Brooklyn, a depleted Lakers. No Anthony Davis, no LeBron James, no Kyle Kuzma. So figure, yeah, it's just gonna be, I might watch half of this game because it's gonna be, just an ass whooping. Turns out it wasn't. The Lakers, destroyed Brooklyn. And one of the reasons why they destroyed Brooklyn is one, Kyrie Irving was ejected from the game. Now, I've seen players get ejected. It happens all the time. Go back and forth with the official, or something happens with another player, and they, double technical stuff like that. So, but this one was peculiar because he gets tangled up with Dennis Schroeder, who was the point guard for Los Angeles Lakers. At the time, Schroeder had like 19 points and was really, in many ways getting the best of Irving, who also was playing well, but Schroeder was, was definitely getting his. So they started going back and forth at the end of the play. The referee official gives the classic double technical foul because that's that's the easy thing to do, give a double technical, and then you hope, or they figure that the players will calm down because if they get another technical, they're out the game. So, but Kyrie kept talking for whatever reason, and he approached Dennis Schroeder, got in his face, and then as he's walking away, he keeps talking until the official just says, "You know what, bye." Basically gives him the second technical. Schroeder waves at him, which is a form of a taunt, and he gets tossed out. So at the time, thinking to myself, like, okay, see this is not a regular occurrence, even though this is un-Kyrie like from the standpoint of him snapping like this and losing control. Turns out that, and I saw a video with audio to confirm it. Somebody did a great job at not editing, but with the sound, because it was clear as day where Schroeder, after the play was over, Kyrie approached Schroeder, went up to his face. Schroeder was said GD, nigga. And then Kyrie lost his shit and said, don't call me that. I'm not your nigga. Watch your motherfucking mouth, blah, blah, so on and so on and so on. So after the game, Kyrie put on Twitter, basically his disdain for the word nigga, gives you his history, gives us basically a mini history lesson on the word and where it came from. And, the word should be tossed out and never used again, especially in regards to African Americans using it amongst themselves. What are your thoughts? Not so much on this particular situation, but on the word. Is Kyrie right? Should this word be not used by anyone, just completely tossed out of just destroyed, so to speak?
So I'm in between. I think, and that comes because, we know where the word started from, and where it came from, and how it spun into, more so, I guess, hip hop culture and everything like that. I'm in a place of it definitely does need to be tossed out, but I know when it comes from certain situations or certain people, and that's just unfortunate to say that, it's kind of like using the word. I mean, it's not like it at all. There's nothing that's like that word, period. I'm gonna say that. Because the power and stuff like that was behind that word, and the racism and everything that was behind that word, that was when it was created. But I guess for a female saying the B word or a hoe and different things like that, I kind of sometimes, not all the times, like I said, it's the N word is way stronger. I analyze it like that. There are some people, and that depends on your relationship with you. You can use the B word, or you can use the H word, and even the N word, and the meaning is completely different, right? And that goes with that type of relationship you have with that individual. While other people will use that same word and it'll be so much more, hate and slander and racism. There's so much stuff behind the word, right? So I'm in agreement with destroying the word and getting rid of the word. It's just very difficult with what we change the word into and how certain people use it amongst each other and certain groups, right? So I'm in agreement of definitely tossing out the word. I don't think it's really needed. But how and I guess when it comes in regards to like when you're hanging out with your friends and people that you're comfortable with and you use that word, it just makes it difficult, right? But if it was one of those things like, hey, let's just toss the word out completely, I'm okay with it. I don't really care. It's not that deep. There's other words that, you can obviously use, but I understand his anger, especially when it's not someone that you're, comfortable with and in certain situations. And then all the racial tension that we're experiencing right now, it is very inappropriate, especially when you don't have that relationship. He's competing. So I see his anger, and it's so much racial tension, especially in this country and of course across the world that we're seeing, that it's one of those things that if we all can do a general consensus, if we can all say, hey, let's throw the word out, I'm not against it. I'm not opposed to it, right? So because I know how mentally I'm doing with all of the things that's going on around us, especially to Black and brown people, it's so nerve-wracking mentally. And I'm happy you said that in the beginning of the episode, like, Black people, Black and brown people, I hope you're taking care of your mental state, because it's exhausting, it's tiresome, and it's very scary. To be in this country. It's been that way, honestly, but now we get to feel it. It's right there it's right in front of our faces 24/7, right? So yeah, let's toss the word out. It's not even that big of a deal for me. But as a society, how we're going to do that, especially with the hip hop culture has turned into, that's another.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to get tossed out. I guess for me, if someone doesn't want to use it, that's their business. I use it again around people that, to your point, that I had that type of relationship with. I think that what's happened with the word is kind of ironic. What's happened with the word is kind of like a form of it's kind of like ham hocks. Like back in the day, we, when there was not, during slavery times, they would use, they had have foods like ham hocks that would feed us, and stuff is, of course, we know that it's not nutritious, but it was necessary from the standpoint of it was about survival, but it wasn't necessarily good for you. With this word, it's kind of like, with that word, yeah, we know the original meaning of it and where it started, but Black people have kind of flipped it and made it a term of endearment and made it a part of pop culture and hip hop culture, and I guess I would just be completely hypocritical if I just said, toss it aside when I use it. So it does. And by the way, if it's something like, I have no problem with someone like with a Kyrie per se not wanting to be called that. If you have a problem with being called that, then that is your personal right, your personal business. I will respect your boundaries, and I wouldn't call you that. A lot of people are coming at Kyrie because, of course, Twitter is the land of old tweets. They have 2 videos of Kyrie using the word within the last 3 years. I would say people evolve, so he changed his mind. So that, let's stop.
Yeah.
And the videos are at least 2 years old, 2 to 3 years old.
And so, with everything going on, he has the right to be like, you know what, guys, I don't want to use this word anymore. So, and I agree.
Richard Pryor Richard Pryor did that. He went to Africa, said and hurt and said and changed his whole mindset in terms of I'm not saying came back from Africa and said I'm never going to use that word ever
Yeah.
again. So
Yeah.
you can
And
change, you can evolve and change your mind. So
right. And people have that right, especially if people are doing more educating themselves now more than ever, especially with everything going on. I think that's awesome. That's great. And if we honestly, I'm not going to say I don't use the word. I definitely do use the word. But if it's a hey, if we're like, hey, let's not use the word anymore, I'm okay with being like, all right, cool, great, that's fine. Like it's not like it's not so it's not that important that I have to like, oh, I have to use it. But I do appreciate the fact that our community was able to take the power out of the word or the negativity out of the word to some degree, because obviously we still don't want white people using it. So it still has that power. So that's the reason why I'm okay with tossing the word out completely, because it's also one of those things that we've gotten over it. And there's also different ways to say it. You can't be like, you can't say GGER, you know what I mean? It's more of an NGGA, right? Like it's a different
it is different. It is. No,
it's a huge difference. So I appreciate how our community have created that distinction and taken that power away from the word. But to some degree, it's still so powerful that we do get angry and we don't want other communities using it on us. If not, we're ready to beat them up. So I'm okay with just tossing it out completely.
It's amazing. I think it's amazing to me that even hundreds of years later, whenever it was invented or said, is still the most polarizing word in the English language. It still is. There's not a more polarizing word than that word, and the kind of conversations that come up. And one thing, I'll wrap this up. I don't like hearing when white people try to become experts on it and try to tell us how to use it, or they're being comfortable with it. Like it's it's not for you. To be honest with you, it's not like you just don't use it. That's all. Don't need your advice on the how to use it and when to use it, not to use it, or no, I don't need you doing the study on it. Just
thank you.
You just don't use it.
Thank you. I agree with you on that, Rilo, because I feel like at the end of the day, you have everything else. Let us use this the way we want to use it. Thank you. Bye.
That's pretty much it. So we have again, we talked about the fact that this is going to be a heavy podcast, and there's no more heavier topic right now in our country, despite, and that takes a lot, than what's going on in regards to these mass shootings. You see the numbers on the screen: 48 mass shootings since March 16th. That, of course, with since that tragic Atlanta spy mass shooting that killed a number of Asian customers. I believe the number was 6. Killed at least six, not more. That happened on March 16th, and there have been 48 shootings since that throughout all over the country. And it is, it's kind of brought back into the forefront, because you really think about it. The one thing coronavirus did accomplish, and being in quarantine did accomplish, is you didn't hear anything about mass shootings.
Right.
Of course, when Corona was at its peak, and when we were quarantined and dealing with this, and with the election and all that stuff, mass shootings kind of got quiet, per se, for America at least. And then now, all of a sudden, come spring, or come early March, mid-March, it gets back to what it has been over the course of the better part of the last 20 years. Really, I think since Columbine in Colorado back in '99. So we get into these same political debates. The NRA versus gun owners versus people who don't believe that guns should be, don't believe that's something that want the gun laws change and adjust it and what have you. I'll say this: Here's what I'll say. Government, you can blame government for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But this, I frankly don't think that this is on the government. I'm going to tell you why. Mm-hmm. People love their guns. It's just that simple in this country. This country is the most violent country in the world. In terms of the movies we watch, in terms of just what we consume, in terms of violence on television, we are a violent society that loves our guns. Think about the Second Amendment. Think about the origin of the Second Amendment and think about where that's at. Where is it at right now? So we've gone from Second Amendment, which was a right to bear arms. So that means I have a right to protect my house if you, as an intruder, come in my house and try to harm me or my family. I have a right to protect my house. It sounds very simple and it sounds logical. We've gone from that to open carry. So it's not even so it's not even about protecting my house. I'm taking automatic rifle, whatever, with me and just walking in the street or going to a grocery store or something like that in various open carry states. That's not politicians. That is the people. That is you, America. That is what our society has become. We have this, it's almost a fetish that we have with guns. It is, again, I've never fired a gun. I've held a gun in my hand. I've never fired it. Even holding a gun, I didn't see where it didn't do it for me. I don't, it's like, okay, but there is people in this country, and there are millions of billions of people in this country that are obsessed with guns. And until that mindset shifts, this is going to continuously happen because the people will not hold politicians, are not going to hold politicians accountable for changing these gun laws and changing these gun laws to protect people. So what are your thoughts on these shootings and just gun laws in general, in terms of where you stand?
Well, I had created, as you'll see, so once he goes to the next few slides, so I created essentially a slideshow, and it just talks about, so Switzerland is actually, I think it's like at this point now, it's like the third, has the highest gun rate per 100,000 citizens. And so Switzerland's a great example, but they're in terms of having mass shootings is very, very low. So there's a lot of statistics that you can easily Google and just look up Switzerland. This is a great example. They are, they're first world country, so many things that are like that we have. Yes, their population is smaller. Obviously, America is a much bigger country, but they still calculate it per, certain amount of people. But at the end of the day, they haven't had mass shooting in 18 years. And when they did have a mass shooting, they just start to enforce a little bit more strict rules. But pretty much a lot of people in Switzerland have a gun. So it's just always interesting when you see countries, and it's not just Switzerland, you have Australia, you have so many other countries that you guys can look up, the United Kingdom. I mean, they do have a pretty high mass shooting percentage of, they also have a high number too, but their number is high and has been going down because they've actually started to put, making a little bit more rules in terms of who can get access to firearms and stuff like that. So you're looking at all these other countries that, that resemble America in terms of how developed they are, and they just don't have these same issues. So it just, to me, it doesn't make sense, but it does come down to, from my research of all these other countries, like I said, Australia, United Kingdom, Israel, Japan. And I'm bringing up these countries because they have a high Canada's right next to us. A lot of people have guns in these countries, but at the end of the day, and the access to the guns is not as easily accessible. Not saying that that's going to prevent people from lashing out and go on mass shooting sprees. But I do think if you put a little bit more, just a little bit more rules in place on who can get it, like, having you know, just certain things that they have to do. Checking their mental state is probably number one. The fact that that's not really a thing is a little weird, especially with the mass shootings increasing. And also it talks about, I think Australia had a situation where when they start to have increase of mass shootings and it start to go down, because what they did, it's called, sorry, I'm looking up real quickly. They did some type of enforcement where gun control, I mean, they did some type of enforcement where it actually went down after they put a gun law controls in place. It actually decreased from 1988. It decreased dramatically over 10 to 20 years. So there are things that can be put in place. No one's saying not to have a gun. I'm not against having a gun. I feel like if that's what you want, you should have that right. But we need to put some rules in place. Why is this so difficult? Like, make people take a class, make people do a background check, check their mental state, just do certain things, because the issue with what's happening is that it's never a problem until it affects you, right? Until they're in your community, shooting up your community, or they hurt you, or somebody that you know. The next thing you know, you want to enforce gun rules and stuff like that. I think just at the end of the day, with any weapon, it should be some sort of process, vetting process and rules. Like, hey, if you get a gun, this is what you have to do. And like I said, you see Switzerland right here, they have tons of people, almost a good half of their country owns a gun. But you don't see them running around here shooting up everybody left and right, because they have real rules. There's strict rules in place. As an owner, you have to be responsible, period. So,
Yeah,
and they do training. They do real training for guns. And they're sorry about that. They do real trainings. And actually teenage boys, actually, they have like shooting competitions from the age 13 to 17. And you can Google this. Switzerland, they have a shooting competition for people, teenage boys in their country. It's a big thing. It's a big deal in their country. They do it every year. But at the end of the day, you still don't see those people running around here shooting up everybody. And that's a culture. That's a tradition in their culture for young boys, teenage boys, to join shooting competitions. It's in their country, nation, they're nationwide in their country or whatever. So yeah, that's all.
No, I mean, yeah, you make some very valid points, and I'm looking at this slide right now where the NRA, which is kind of like the police union, they are just politicians are just at the feet of police unions and also the NRA. NRA is one of the most powerful organizations in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Politicians are scared to death of the NRA. They have been for years and seemingly continuously will be, are. But I think, yeah, it's way too easy to get a gun. And yeah, you can put in strict regulations, mental health. I mean, the way to attack this, the way to attack this, obviously with stricter regulations in terms of how to get a gun. What we have to, and we've done a poor job at addressing this. And this is what I'm talking about with defund the police, as far as putting more resources towards not only education, but also mental health.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these cases,
that's true.
The people who are doing these shootings are not all the way there, or not all there, to say the least. And again, it's like, I don't expect citizens of this country are never going to give up their guns. This is not going to happen. They, like politicians, they value their guns more than they do even human lives. So I just don't see that happening to a point to where people will endorse stricter gun laws, or enough people endorse stricter gun laws to put pressure on politicians to enforce that. I just don't. This is not, like, to me, the way this country, I mean, that was one of the biggest arguments with these Trump idiots, talking about Joe Biden. He's going to take away our guns. And like, no, you idiot. Joe Biden is just like the rest of the politicians from that standpoint. Not going to take away your guns. He's not going to be that radical when it comes to that, or police, or going up against police,
Right.
against police unions. He's just not. He's still a politician at the end of the day. Even though he's not. He may not be. He's not a. Not Donald Trump or somebody, or a lot of you Republicans who are there, lost your minds, but he's still a politician at the end of the day. So no, your guns are not going anywhere, which is the problem.
Yeah.
So because again, this comes from this has been a part of our DNA as a country, as a society. Just this obsession with guns, and again, with this obsession with guns.
But Switzerland, they have a bigger obsession than us. And they have the third highest ratio of civilian firearms per 100 residents. But at the end of the day, they still have just some type of rules. They're bigger than us because they actually have competitions for their teenage boys. I thought that was actually very interesting. The teenage boys, they're telling them, you got to use a gun. You got to learn how to use a gun. They push it.
No, my point, I think, no, clear. I mean, I agree with you. Clearly, if there were more things put in place, tougher to get a gun, or even more, it being more organization in terms of the rules, things of that nature, we wouldn't be seeing as many murders, or some accountability from that standpoint when this does happen.
Right.
But the problem is, again, and this is part of America. America is too free from that standpoint. Like we have freedom. It's too free to be reined in, and there are some things that we can learn from other countries when it comes down to crime and things of that nature. But it's America is used to this just being able to do whatever the hell they want. Americans used to be able to do whatever the hell they want. So these type of rules would be like, telling a child, you can't watch television after, you have to turn off the television and, tell them to turn off the television at 8:00 when they've been watching television until midnight.
Right. That's true.
So it's not that I don't doubt for a second that added rules and things and, mental health checks and background, stronger, stringent background checks would make a difference. But society, citizens are not going there are too many people, there's too much of a segment of this population that is not going to allow that. Similar, again, you compare this is similar to reparations.
Right, that's true.
We know we should give reparations, but there's still a similar, a nice segment of this, a big part of this society, segments of this country that doesn't even acknowledge it at all. So that is the problem. Is as much as again, I put for this one, I put the emphasis more on as much as the people, NRA citizens, as I do even the government.
Right.
You put pressure on government. We were talking earlier about our ideal candidate. If one of the things in terms of our ideal candidate was, look, we need stricter gun laws, then that will come about. Like, hey, you can. What is your theory? What are your thoughts on gun laws and what have you? You don't think there should be stricter gun laws? Oh, bam, you're not for us. There's not that There's not that accountability that people are putting on politicians to enforce gun laws.
That's true.
At all. So it's not, and even with Joe Biden, he signed these frivolous orders that are not going to move. They're not going to move the needle. Like they look good in theory, but they're not like. Then it's not going to make a dramatic impact on these mass shootings.
Right, that's true. And it hasn't. That many shootings we've had since. That's so many. I didn't even know it's that many. It's so horrible. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, no, it's basically been
crazy.
Like 3 a week. I mean, it's on average, it's been like at least more than that. Certain weeks, like
that's horrible.
So you're talking about, March 16th is barely a month ago.
A month ago, right? I must say
we're talking 48 divided by like 4 weeks. That's 12 a week. That's 12 a week.
That's clearly his increase since he's been in office. My gosh.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen,
That's horrible.
it's something. Again, we've seen this throughout our lifetimes, especially in the past 20 plus years. Again, the one that jumps off to me is Columbine in Colorado, which of course is the open carry state. And with that tragedy happened at that high school back in '99, and they've had just since that they've had 9 school shootings alone. Mm-hmm. Let alone counting the amount of other mass shootings that they've had in the state of Colorado. Mm. But again, you look at it, it's still an open carry state. So that's something clearly that the citizens love, that freedom of being able to carry a weapon, freely in the street, So again, I said this earlier in the podcast with policing. With coming up, trying to construct a ideal candidate that's going to serve the needs of African Black and African Americans. It has the same powers in the people. So you as citizens, you have the power to make this change. It's either you do or you don't. It just comes out of that. You know what I'm saying? There's too many citizens out there who don't. Don't in this point in 2021.
What's crazy? There's a statistic. There is estimated to be more guns than people in the U.S. It says is about 101 guns per 100 Americans. What? Yeah. That's so crazy. Sorry, random.
No, just it's like that is. It's just the it all connects when you think about it. We were talking about prisons, we were talking about money that are generated because of prisons being built. So there are more guns out there. They're more likely to be more criminal activity, and a lot of that criminal activity is going to take place just throughout the course of the course of the country. No matter, and this is not guns have no color, but yeah, all races are using guns. White, black are using guns and murdering people. So if they get arrested, go to jail. That's more people in jail. That's more money for prisons. You have less violence. Maybe you have to close some prisons down, but that's not what the system is designed to do. So of course it makes perfect sense that the number of guns would outnumber the amount of people. But again, to me, it really comes down to a shift in mindset. Yeah. Like what do you value? Do you value the gun, or do you value human life?
Right. In America too. I mean, like you said, it's a bunch of stuff because our military budget is ridiculous. And I know that's part of the gun situation. Like the amount of money we put into that, it's insane. Like into prisons, we put our money to so much stuff than to things that could actually help benefit us and grow us. There's just not enough resources going into the people in our education system and our just so much other stuff, but it's being pumped into guns and to the prisons and the military. It's insane to me. And yeah.
If you ever put it this way, right? Getting back to like defund the police.
Hello?
I hear you. Getting back to defund the police, back to how we disperse our resources as far as money. If you put more money into mental health, education, job programs. Hello, you hear me?
You broke up a little. Sorry.
Probably internet probably went in and out for a couple of seconds. Yeah. But getting back to what we were talking about with defund the police, if you put more money, right, into job programs, the community, education, mental health, then you don't need hundreds of millions of guns. You don't need you don't need a bunch of cops on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need some of the things that we are spending money on.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down to what are you really trying to accomplish? Like what are you trying? What are your? I hear what you're saying, but what are your actions? What are your actions dictating? You know, you'll hear politicians, you'll hear people say, try to say all the right things, and guns are bad, or not guns are bad, or violence is bad, and so on and so on. I'm not looking at what you're talking about. I'm looking at what are your policies? What are laws that you sign off? What are bills that you sign off? Or what are bills that you're not signing off? Like Emmett Till bill. The Emmett Till bill still hasn't been signed by Republicans, by the Senate. Okay, that's still out there. That bill still hasn't been signed. So it's all about your actions when it comes down to it.
Okay.
So yeah, again, we wouldn't need a lot. We wouldn't need all these guns on the street if you put information, put resources into other aspects of life that could make this place more livable and a better place to be. So it's really just that simple. Putting more money towards healthcare, like stuff that actually matters in terms of helping the people. Guns don't, for the most part, don't help people. It's just that simple. To be completely honest with you, from that standpoint. On a lighter note, if you want to call this light, this is like what we've been talking about. Carol, I hope I pronounce this lady's name right, because she's had a rough week. Keelan Spadani, 33 years old, from Harvey, Louisiana, was arrested for withholding $1.2 million. You ask yourself, how did she get $1.2 million? I'll tell you, she had $1.2 million was accidentally deposited into her account. So Keelan switched immediately, transferred that money into a separate account, and went out and splurged for a brand new house and a 2021 Hyundai. And now Keelan has not only been fired from her job, she's been arrested with $50,000 bond, and is being sued by Charles Schwab and company, that deposited the money into her account in the first place. What would you do if someone accidentally, if you woke up, looked at, and by the way, the original amount, this is hilarious. The original amount of the money that was supposed to be deposited into your account was $86, like $86.28. But they were off by a few, off by a good million in terms of that.
Couple added at the end. Sorry.
Yeah. Listen, it's this, like, I laugh, but this story, I mean, it's a rough story because of the pandemic. I don't know this lady's personal situation. Like, a lot of people out here starving. A lot of people are hurting still with collecting job benefits, still out of a job, struggling to make ends meet. I don't know what her particular situation is, but if you wake up one morning and you go check the old account balance and you see $1.2 million, it'd be hard to give it back. I'm sorry. I know the right thing to do is to give it back, and obviously I'm not, going to sacrifice my livelihood and my career and reputation. And the government's going to get is money. We know that. But man, I'm not going to lie to you. It would be hard to get that money back. It really would be. What are your thoughts?
I mean, listen, I think it's funny. And I just think it's one of those things that, like, give the sister a break. I mean, definitely what she did was wrong. I'm not going to, if it came into my account, I'd be like, hold up. I already know this money's probably going to be taken back. So I would just probably wait, because I already know, it's like, I know they're coming to get their money. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that 1.2 million is going to be gone for too long, right? Someone's going to notice it's missing. So I probably would never went crazy because I'm like, dang, they want to take this. You know what I mean? I know they're going to come look for the money. It wasn't like we're talking about, $2,000. Even that,
Yeah, that's where she messed up, man. She got greedy. Like she shifted all the money to a different account. Like she should have been
like $5,000
like
or something.
5 G's, 10, yeah, a couple G's, something 5, 10 G's. She shifted not only she shifted all the money into a separate account. She goes out and buys. I hate to use this word, but this is a nigga move. Goes out and buys a house and a car. Same day.
It was just like, ma'am, they're coming for that. You know what I mean? It's just too much. It's too much money for you to, or for them not to notice is going. So I kind of felt like, come on, sis. You know what I mean? Like, all right, at least return some of the money or majority. You know what I mean? Just take out like $5,000 and be like, all right, I'll pay y'all back later. Sorry, I thought it was my money, because I can see how $5,000, especially she probably didn't, but especially if you already have like, 10, 20 grand in your account and this extra 5 is on top, you're looking like, oh, where does money come from? All right, cool. You know what I mean? Like, so, but yeah, no. The 1.2 million, that's just too much. That's just one of those things that, they coming for their money. I don't care what anybody says. They're going to come for that money, period. So for me, it'd have been different, but I get what you're saying. Like, I just feel like they went a little hard on her and suing her and all that extra stuff. Well,
no, let me tell you also. All right, so the reason why they sued her for a couple of reasons why they sued her. Sued her not only because they got her for bank fraud, got her for theft. You're talking about they number of times tried to contact her through phone, telephone, email, and she was refusing to take the call. She's conveniently ignoring them.
You should have took that money and went to a different country, okay?
Yeah, for real. You're gonna do something.
Oh wow. If you're gonna if you're gonna go hard about it, go to a country where America can't get you. Bye.
Plastic something. But exactly. You're gonna go hard, go big, go big, or don't go at all. But she did. According to her, that was big though. She bought a house and a car.
They coming for that house. Leave the country, transfer that money out to a Swift bank account. Accounts that American can't touch. That's where all these billionaires or millionaires that the Swiss bank account. Cayman Islands, whatever it is.
Islands, yep.
Yeah, go hard like that and disappear.
She clearly was not thinking on that level.
Listen,
so she
1.2 million. They coming for that money, girl.
Oh yeah, they're coming for that money. And the bottom line is, you buying a house and a car, your name is going to be attached to that. So that's easily traceable. It's like, you watch these old, I don't know how big of a fan you are, these old mafia movies where, where they, something that happened where a heist and guys are rob a bank or whatever and get all this money. And then the main boss will be like, yo, lay low, don't buy nothing right now until this blows over. And then, of course, you have one or two dummies that go out and buy a brand new car or some shit that draws attention. And then that's how he ends up getting killed. Being stupid. So, yeah, they were going to trace this money. They were coming for this money regardless, but especially you put a target on your back by buying a house and a car. It's not like you went to the movies or went to the beach. You buy a house and a car. So that was it. Yeah,
how fast did sis move? She was not playing.
Listen, she was not that's the one thing she did that was right in terms of that was the one thing she did that was efficient. How quickly that money turned into a house and a car, and how quickly she moved. Not only that, first of all, the fact that she moved the money from her main account to a separate account, okay, like just like that. So that was with the quickness.
Yeah.
And two, to go buy, to immediately buy the house and to immediately buy the house and car. I just wondered from this standpoint, I just thought about this. Like we've all done transfers. We all transferred money within our accounts and what have you in our various accounts, or if you have stocks and things of that nature. There's not a limit on how much you can transfer to a separate. I just wonder, I wonder how that works. I've never had $1.2 million to transfer. Is there a transfer limit? I need my bankers out here too.
So
Respond.
no, because with real estate, I see large amounts of money.
Yes, yes.
I've even seen millions of dollars in people's bank accounts, but transfer the money is never easy. That's why I'm like, I'm trying to Google how long does she have this money? How I'm still confused. I'm like, she must have had that money for like a month because I'm just confused how she can move the money. I mean, just to move 10 grand takes time. So anything over that, it takes time. So I'm confused. She must have had this money in her account for like a month or two. Like, this is weird. So no wonder she went crazy to buy a house, because the housing process, I mean, yes, if you have cash, it goes much faster.
Right.
So you can get it done in a week or two. But for her to have that much time to transfer $1.2 million on top of also transferring that money to the title company as well, I'm just like, how much time does she really have? Because to me, it sounds like it sounds like she had like a month. That money was in her account for a month. That's probably why she went crazy. Like, oh, they're not coming after this money. Because I'm just like,
So I'm looking up the story now.
yeah.
This happened back in
Because you know,
This happened in February.
oh, okay.
Okay, this happened in February, but they don't say
They didn't say
they don't give you a timeline.
yeah, that's the issue. Because maybe she waited and she was like, well, this money's still here. And then she was like, well, I guess no one's coming for it. Because I'm like, to buy a house, that just takes time. Even if it's all cash, it's still like a week or two.
Yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, that's I think I would lean
The
towards
title.
because it take that. Yeah, you're a realtor, so you know
Yeah.
that process in terms of paperwork and stuff like that.
Okay.
Even now, let me ask you this: even if you have the funds, like she clearly had the money, even if you have the money, but just that whole
You got to transfer.
it's just a process of the like signing over
Yeah,
the paperwork and
exactly. It's the title. So the title company. So because she's not using a mortgage, like I said, I've had $1 million clients. So it's not like I'm not just talking about this from hypothetical. I've had clients that had millions of dollars in their bank account, and more than that, actually more than 1 million. So I've sold $1 million homes, whatever. So with that being said, I see the money, and usually those people that have that much money, or they're buying a purchase that large, they usually have multiple bank accounts, or they have money spread out. They usually don't have the money just all in one place. They have it spread out. But even then, let's just say it's all sitting in one bank account, just for the sake of this conversation. Even if it's sitting in that bank account, it's still going to take it takes a couple of days or so, maybe like a week, to transfer the money, depending on what account it is. And let's say the money is instant for however way that's going to be. It's usually not that instant. Even when you wire the money, well, I guess you can wire the money. It could go pretty fast. But let's just say the title company still has to do research. Most clients, I still tell them you should still get a title work done. And that could take a week or two, because you want them to make sure the property is owned by the owner, that the person that's selling the property, you want to confirm that they actually own the property. So that can take a couple of days or a week. Then keep in mind, title companies only work Monday through Friday. So if they find out like, hey, this title is the right title, it takes them 3 or 4 days. We're not going to close that week. We're going to close the next week, because we got to prep the documents and all this other stuff like that. Then outside of the title work, outside of that, you still have to confirm, maybe they want a survey done of their property to confirm the land, the boundary line. So there's a number of things the title company is doing, and it could take a week or two for them to do it. And then in terms of transferring the money, it's just not instant. It takes, like I said, it could take a couple of days, maybe a week. It just depends on where the money's at. But it's never that instant. I just know once you're trying to transfer over 10 grand, it's a process. Your bank is like, they have the questions, and it's always stuff. So I'm just shocked. Like, she must have had that money in her account for like a good couple of weeks.
yeah, I'm sorry. As I'm really trying to unpack this, it's getting like that. Like,
so she got excited.
no, I'm not. Yeah, I already clearly know where she was coming from, but I'm just talking about in terms of the ineptitude
But you
bank. How did that bank make that mistake? And how did they not notice it for a couple of weeks, or maybe 2 to 3 weeks? I'm like that to me is kind of standing out too, because $1.2 million is a lot of money. Even though banks deal with tens and hundreds of million dollars, it's still $1.2 million. Right. It's not 5,000, it's not $520. It's $1.2 million. So I'm sure somebody from Charles Schwab probably got fired. I'm sure somebody, this is like a case of somebody might have got fired for this type of, they haven't recovered all the money. They've only recovered, not only, but they've recovered 75% of it up to this point. And yeah, it's like, yeah, it's just, as you are breaking it down,